Welcome to CosmoFactory, a podcast by Cosmoprof Worldwide Bologna, where we explore the entire cosmetics, personal care, and fragrance industry supply chain. I'm your host, Deanna Utrusky, and here at CosmoFactory, we look beyond the trends to discover the ideas, initiatives, and innovations that are truly advancing beauty. Let's get started. This episode is about cosmetic ingredient traceability. It's about sourcing butters, oils, and sugars that keep the rainforests standing. It's about the relevance of third-party certifications and about teaming up with forest communities to produce natural ingredients with applications in skincare, hair care, body care, personal care, and more. My guest on today's episode of the CosmoFactory podcast is Dirk-Jan Oudshoorn, founder and CEO at Forestwise. Welcome.
Thank you. Thanks for having us.
No, I'm so glad you could be with me today here. Forestwise, for folks listening, is a company that's headquartered in the Netherlands, and all of your ingredients, as I understand it, are coming actually from the rainforests of Indonesia. And these two countries have quite a long history. I'm wondering if you can just let us know how that history might figure into your collaborations now with the Indonesian people who harvest and help process the Forestwise ingredients.
Sure. Yeah. Thanks, Diana, for having us in the podcast. Yes, indeed, there is a long history between the Netherlands and Indonesia. It goes back about 400 years, and the Netherlands have been heavily present, I think, in Indonesia for 350 years. There are good sides, there are bad sides, and we don't know. Now a lot more things are coming into light, but the way we work with Indonesian people is hopefully very different from that. It's still focused on indeed collecting materials from Indonesia that are sold all over the world.
Mm-hmm.
But in our case, we really focus on fair trade, on the fair trade side of that trading. Trading of those materials. So yes, I think it's a very, very different relationship, and hopefully we can learn from the past and make things better for the future.
Sure. No, thank you so much for that. I have heard you say in the past that Forestwise, the approach that you take to sourcing raw materials is both rainforest friendly and wildlife friendly. Can you tell us what that actually means?
Yes, it is based on the ingredients that we are collecting are harvested from the rainforest without destroying the rainforest or without harming the rainforest.
Mm-hmm.
So by saying it's rainforest friendly, we mean that the ingredients are coming from rainforest areas. We are working with local communities who live in those rainforests or near those rainforests and who know how to collect the materials in the best way possible without harming the rainforest. And this way, they don't have to cut down the rainforest to make a living, which is basically always the other alternative. For example, if they want to plant palm oil or for gold mining, for example, it's almost always leading to deforestation. So in this case, the forest itself becomes much more economically valuable while it's standing compared to when it's cut down. So that's why it's also wildlife friendly, because it means the habitat of the wildlife is not disturbed and is actually staying alive.
Mm-hmm. Interesting. Thank you for that. So it's very clear to me, and I'm sure to everyone listening already, that your company prioritizes what we think of as environmental sustainability. We know that beauty brands, beauty consumers, and really probably the whole world now considers matters of ethics and human rights a part of sustainability as well. You mentioned fair trade at the start of our interview, but I'm wondering how your company ensures that the people that you work with, that you're actually creating what I would think of as maybe a genuine opportunity that improves workers' quality of life, helps them maintain pride in their communities. Talk more about your collaboration there.
Sure. Yeah, our company, our products are Fair for Life certified, or most of them. And this is quite an extensive standard that looks at living wage or living standards of the people that we work with. So, for example, to make sure that the price that is paid to the collectors of these materials is fair, there is a living wage analysis. There is a cost price analysis for the farmer itself. So, looking at which margin the farmer is getting. It looks at prices paid by competitors, and so on the markets, like how we compare to that. And there's also a Fair for Life premium that is paid by the customers that is yeah, sent back to the farmers through the Fair Trade Fund, and farmers themselves come up with proposals how they want to spend those fair trade funds. So yeah, there's quite a lot of things going on before you can get certified. There's quite a strong collaboration with the local communities, and there are very often meetings and yeah, collaborations about how we can improve or how we can support the farmers in the best way possible to improve their livelihoods.
Yeah, I guess I didn't realize that, but it makes sense about is it a certification? Is that how we're calling it?
Yes, yeah, Fair for Life is a certification.
Yeah, I
Yeah.
mean, I guess I didn't realize about the fair trade or fair for life sort of premium that's added for consumers. It makes perfect sense, right? Because that's one of the challenges is making sure that the economics balance out. And certainly, consumers who are looking for that sort of ethical return on their investment are willing to pay that. That's quite interesting. So, yeah, this question is going to sound a little bit skeptical, so forgive me. But even at industrial scale, I'm wondering how much rainforest that a handful of cosmetic ingredients can actually preserve. Tell us about the scale of what you're able to do.
Yeah, good question. There is well, a lot of the rainforest in Borneo has disappeared. So
Yeah,
that's about 50% of the rainforest. This is what we are trying to keep standing. Of course,
yeah,
we also work in other parts of Indonesia, but really mainly in Borneo. Yeah, so yeah, millions of hectares have been lost, but there are also still millions of hectares available, and it's the third largest island in the world, so it's still quite a big area.
yes.
Um, so far, we have collaborations with six communities where we have, or actually more than six, but with six of them we have agreements on forest protection. While we are so as long as we are purchasing the raw materials from those communities, they will keep the rainforest standing. So it's a win-win actually for both, because it means that we have a guarantee of supply and they have a guarantee of offtake as well for the long term. And this motivates people as well to start replanting trees, for example, Illipe trees, because we
Mhm.
collect the Illipe nuts. And there's no incentive needed other than just buying those ingredients, buying those materials, in this case, Illipe nuts, for people to start replanting. So that's a big driver for us to why we are doing this. Um, and sorry, I have to get back to the yeah. How much can we with the six villages? It's 36,000 hectares. That's
Mhm.
of course that is protected, so that's relatively small. But if we look at the total size of the province where we work, West Borneo, there are Illipe trees growing in, I think, more than 1 million hectares of that area. So there is, yeah, with the growth we are experiencing now with Illipe nuts, for example, there is a potential to really grow to hundreds and thousands of hectares that can be protected this way.
Yeah, yeah, no, that's helpful to hear. Thank you. And of course, I'm very hopeful. Um,
Me too.
It's certainly a noble endeavor. Forestwise also sells into the food industry. And are there other sectors where your products make sense?
Yes, it depends a bit on the industry, but indeed, the oils, butters, and the sugars that we make, they are all edible, so they can also go into the food industry. For Illipe butter, it is a cocoa butter equivalent,
Ah,
meaning that it's of high interest from cocoa chocolate manufacturers, and that's actually where we see the largest volume growth as well. So yeah, linking to the question before, like we see, yeah, quite a big growth in volume, meaning also quite a big growth in impact for protecting rainforest. And we are also looking at rubber actually, because all the farmers we work with, basically, there are rubber farmers, and they
mhm,
do collection of these non-timber forest products. They do that on the side of the rubber industry mostly. So we are looking into that industry as well to be able to support the farmers even more.
mhm, mhm. So interesting. And we've mentioned certifications a little bit, but I know your company actually has several third-party certifications. I'm curious what the value of those certifications is to your business, maybe your distribution partners, even the brands you formulate with your ingredients. What's the relevance here?
Yes, some of them are really a must to get into certain brands.
Okay.
Um, so almost all of our products are organic certified, organic for EU and the US. And this is yeah, this has become quite a must for most of our customers. For the Fair for Life certification, not all customers are waiting for it, or I mean, are asking or requesting this. But because we have it already, then they're actually quite happy to learn about it, and yeah, they see how their purchase is contributing to these fair trade fund projects as well.
Mhm.
And then we have a Cosmos certification, which is a Cosmos approved. We use that for ingredients that are not organic certified, for example. So to have at least that in place as a certification, that shows at least the natural nature of the product. And then we have halal certification, kosher certification. Those are also mainly because of yeah, those become requirements more and more from our customers. And we are a member of the Union for Ethical Biotrade, the UEBT. And yeah, we see that more and more brands are connecting to yeah, to that community as well. So it's a way for us to also show to other to potential off-takers, like we are in the same street, or we're working in the same way. And that's why we are now also looking at to become a B Corp. And that's yeah, now in progress. So it's
Yeah.
exciting.
No, it is for sure. And thank you for running through that list of certifications. I know it's something that a lot of ingredient companies face, is this decision about which certifications to pursue, how relevant they are. So I'm sure hearing that will be useful for many of our listeners. You mentioned kosher and halal certification. I want to think a little bit deeper about halal in particular. And the global population presently is more than 25% Muslim. I'm wondering if you can talk more about the particular relevance that certification of halal has had for your business. Any feedback you've heard, any requests you've heard. Like I said, we're trying to help some other companies for sure with the information we share here.
Yes, for sure. Yeah, it's actually Indonesia is more than 70% Muslim. So it's one of the largest, or if not the largest, Muslim nation in the world. And it might actually become also obligatory to have that certification as an Indonesian company.
Uh-huh.
Yeah, you mentioned our headquarters are in the Netherlands, but we have a daughter company in Indonesia where we do the production. And yeah, we are really trying also to address the Indonesian market. We are currently still exporting a 95% more or less of our products, but we definitely hope that we can grow the market share in Indonesia as well. So that's an important reason for us. But yeah, there are also many other countries and companies who are asking for halal certification now.
Mhm, mhm. No, thank you for sharing that. So we've touched on it a bit in some of the replies here so far, but let's speak now more specifically about your ingredient portfolio. It is relatively small, as you mentioned, butters, oils, sugars, for the most part. But tell us what you're sharing with the beauty industry.
Yes, thank you very much. The main ingredients we are promoting and producing is Illipe butter. So as mentioned, it's very similar to cocoa butter. Like the fatty acid profile is it's almost identical. But it's also like a good moisturizing butter. It has good structuring properties. So it's used, for example, in solid formulations, because of the high melting point. For the oils, we have kukui nut oil, which is also known as candle nut oil. This one is also organic and Fair for Life certified. So we are the only supplier of those certifications for this product. And this is a very dry oil that penetrates the skin very quickly. but also has a very good moisturization properties. Then we have virgin coconut oil. This is not produced by ourselves, but by a company called Aluan, which is our partner.
Mhm.
They are based in Sumatra, Indonesia, and they also have high ethical standards, working with nature conservation on the island where they are located. And this is, in terms of qualities, one of the best quality virgin coconut oil that you can find. Then we have buah merah oil. It means red fruit oil. This comes from Papua, so that's the very most eastern part of Indonesia, which is connected to Papua New Guinea. And this is a very special oil that we get a lot of good feedback about. It's very high in beta carotene and has high antioxidant levels. And it's used as a natural colorant, but also, for example, in hair care. That's actually what it's most famous for, to promote hair growth. And then for the sugars, we have two. One is coconut sugar. It's also organic certified. And the other one is arenga, organic arenga sugar. So both of these are palm sugars. They are brown sugars, and they are used, for example, in lip creams or in lip products to enhance the taste of the product, or as an exfoliant, or, for example, for hair removal.
Okay. Okay. Very good. Thank you. And maybe you can choose one of those ingredients and share it a little bit further as a case study in terms of how the folks you work with are harvesting it, starting to help produce it. Um, Help us paint a little bit bigger picture of your business there.
Yes, for sure. I think I would still choose Illipe butter because it's our flagship product. So we have so far supported 1,200 farmers who are collecting these nuts. Next season, this is likely to grow to around 3 to 4,000 farmers. And these are trees that are sort of in their backyard, but they did not have an economic value anymore. It used to be quite valuable until 1980s,
Mhm.
but then later, when as palm oil gained more and more popularity, um, the other products, the Illipe butter was forgotten a bit. So with our intervention, we're able to make this product valuable again. People start replanting the trees, as I mentioned, and we do as much as possible close to the rainforest. So the local communities, they add as much value as possible until the nuts are completely clean, peeled, sun dried, and then we take them to the factory. And the only last step we do in the factory there is to press the nuts, and then we do refining of the oil that we get from the nuts, currently in the Netherlands.
Mhm.
So this way we have the communities add as much value as possible, and we can increase their income by 16% on an
Mhm.
annual basis.
Mhm. Excellent. Thank you for that. And you mentioned the opportunity to work with many more farmers in the future, so that's very promising as well. Um, while we're talking about ingredients from Indonesia, for our listeners, I just want to mention it's purely coincidental, but a very recent episode of CosmoFactory, episode 28, which was maybe just last week or the week before for our listeners. I spoke with the CEO of the Martha Tyla R Group, which is based in Indonesia. So after this episode, they might want to go have a listen to that one. Um,
Great, we hope so.
yeah, but let's you and I now talk about traceability. A fully traceable ingredient supply chain is very desirable, but very difficult to realize. Can you tell us how your company documents and demonstrates ingredient origin and then that path through processing and sale that you walked us through?
Yes, absolutely. When we first started, our company is only 6 years old, but when we first started, actually everything was documented on paper. We were already tracing everything because we have contract with each farmer individually. So we know exactly how many nuts we bought from each farmer,
Mhm.
or how many other raw materials we bought from them. And then throughout the supply chain, so from the nuts arriving at our factory, how much butter is produced from that, and in which batches is that going, that's all documented. So that in the end, if the customer is buying a product from a certain batch, we can tell them exactly which farmers the raw materials for that batch came from. So that was all very manual. Now, as we are growing, we have introduced an app. App was already existing, but is customized to our supply chain. And all the farmers are now registered on that app, so they have their own login. But we can also see all of them in our side of the platform. And it starts from mapping the land where the materials are collected. Then we can see the purchase that's done from the farmer, going into a truck that is bringing it to the factory, and then the production. So all of the steps are recorded, and it's all using this app. So later, when the customer is getting their ingredients or their end product, even they could scan with the QR code, or they could scan the product, and they could see also which farmer collected the nuts for the ingredients that are in that product.
Yeah, wow. No, thank you for that. Can you mention anything about sort of the expense or ROI of that traceability initiative?
Well, yeah, we have to see how many customers are really coming on board because of that traceability that we can offer. So yeah, the investment of an app like this itself is about $12,000,
Mhm.
and then there's an annual cost to that as well.
Sure.
But I think definitely there was at least one big client that came on board. Basically 2024, so this year, and they are now one of our biggest customers, and their main reason to choose us as their new supplier was that traceability that we can offer, because our competitor could not.
Mhm.
So yeah, I think that return on investment should be returned already.
Good, good. I'm glad it seems to be shaping up for you there. Before we started our interview, you mentioned I could call you DJ, that many of your business colleagues use that name. So I'm assuming I can toss that in here. I just have a couple more questions for you.
Yeah.
DJ, I'd like to ask you a similar question, I guess, similar to the traceability question, but more about your overall business. I'm wondering, when you make decisions, how are you balancing the vision to, excuse me, to really do the right thing within the commercial realities that you see in the ingredient marketplace?
Yeah, I think that there has to be a commercial opportunity for this to be successful. So if there is no commercial possibility, then we would leave that product on the table until the opportunity comes.
Mm.
So we look at, of course, there are really thousands of ingredients that can potentially be harvested from the rainforest that have some kind of benefits, if it's for the cosmetic industry or food industry or any other industry. And so far, I believe only 30 have been commercialized from the data from the Indonesian government. So there's still really hundreds or thousands of products that could add value and could help to keep that rainforest standing. But so far there's about 30 products that have been commercialized. We have 6 in our portfolio. We look at, like, okay, we are operating in the cosmetics industry, so which products are the most interesting for our personal care customers. That's the way we look at it, and we are always looking for new ingredients. But when we see an opportunity, we first check it with our clients, with our distributors, if they see a potential market for that before we start taking that a few steps further.
Yeah, yeah, no, that's helpful. I know. And, we hear that sort of, that need for market potential in so many places along the supply chain, whether a distributor will bring on a new ingredient, or what have you. And I often hear from suppliers how important it is for brand leaders or formulators, even end consumers, really to speak up. And if they have an interest or a passion in particular ingredients or particular benefits, that they sort of let the world know, so that I think it can help a company like yours find what makes sense commercially that we might not realize. Um, so that's helpful to hear. I'm wondering if there are any lessons that you've learned while building the Forestwise company that maybe a more conventional, or we might call them a legacy ingredient company, might be able to implement. Maybe it's in terms of sustainability or traceability or even something else. What do you know that we don't know?
Yeah, I think we learned a lot of lessons, and we're happy to share that as well. But I think, yeah, companies can always contact us if they have questions and if they think that we can support. I think one thing is just being on the ground and really trying to connect to the communities. What are their needs, and are they really waiting for this new supply chain to be set up in their village? Like, are they waiting for this new project, or are they actually, yeah, not interested in those trees anymore? For example, just in our case, that was not the case, but it was actually the communities that came to us. We were there actually at that time. I was working in an NGO that was already 11 years ago,
Mhm.
and in this case, we were working on another non-timber forest product. But then, while working on that, they mentioned, "Hey, can you not also look at this Illipe nut, as it used to be so valuable for them?" So yeah, that's actually how it started. And yeah, now being 6 years, yeah, I've been living in Indonesia now for almost 12 years, and 6 years running this business. Yeah, we see it over and over again. There's so much knowledge with the indigenous communities who live there, um, how to handle these materials as well. So the first ones to ask are them, if we want to improve anything in the production process, or if we have any ideas how we think the quality can be improved. We will check with them first if they have any ideas on that as well. So I think being on the ground, listening to the farmers, and also, of course, how we can support them in the best way, not only by buying the raw materials from them, but maybe they have other ideas on how they can be supported, so that they can keep the forest standing, because that's in the end what we are doing it for.
Yeah.
But it's also for our business, the long-term goal, because otherwise there are no materials to collect anymore.
Yeah, yeah, absolutely. No, I appreciate you're speaking so honestly about the importance of being on the ground. Maybe you can say a little bit more about that. Can you help us think about how big the Forestwise team is, and maybe you're not sort of doing some of the conventional CEO roles? I mean, tell us how involved you are with sort of the day to day and what it looks like.
Um, yeah, I've been very much involved in the day-to-day um, operations of the company, there at the factory, and with the communities. Yeah, actually already since 12 years ago. So we already had a very good relationship before we set up Forestwise. The team has now grown to 50 people,
Okay.
and 12 of them are field staff. So actually, they are the ones who are always on the ground, and always going around to all the villages to keep them, yeah, to know what's happening, to see where support is needed and how things are going with the harvest. And that was actually for the last harvest. Next harvest, we're hoping to be about 5 times the size of the last harvest. So yeah, that means we also have to grow. Definitely have to grow our field teams. So yeah, probably we'll have 50 people on the ground next year, who
Wow.
are, yeah, actually constantly in the villages. So
Mhm.
they're often during the season, they are there from Monday to Friday, and they only come back to the office like on Fridays, and then on Monday after the briefing day they go back again to those villages. And they also often they come from those villages, so they know, they speak the language,
Mhm.
the local dialect, and yeah, they know how to communicate, how to engage with these people.
Yeah, no, that's fantastic. Thank you for sharing that. It's It's not unusual to hear that people make the difference in the beauty industry. And I think this is a very excellent example of that. Thank you for sharing. And I have to say, DJ, thank you for sharing, your larger perspective here today on the CosmoFactory podcast. I've enjoyed having you as a guest.
Me too. Thank you very much for having us.
Thank you so much for listening. If you find the CosmoFactory podcast useful, please take a moment to leave us a 5-star review and share your thoughts so even more cosmetic industry professionals can discover the CosmoFactory. I'm Deanna Utrusky. Please join me again next Tuesday for a new episode of the CosmoFactory podcast.